Hey, it's T White. Made a quick little video about storage, top loaders, etc. Just a very basic beginner video. I wanted to make this. I know that it can be intimidating for a lot of new collectors and even for returning collectors. Things have changed so much. Just wanted to give you a quick little basics to get you started. So I'm going to start off with just early collecting, which was some people go back 60s, 70s, but for the most part 80s was where it started to take off, and there wasn't really much as far as storage options, and we even made our own little loaders here with plexiglass and just some tape, so it even goes back that far. That's not a good option, by the way. You don't want to do this in today's market. And then once the hobby got more popular, started seeing stuff like this. Everybody's got pages of crap like this. And the problem here is that these are very rigid, and without, a sleeve in there, your surface is going to get scratched. I've even seen these that won't come out because they're like stuck in there. They also have, in the 80s, they used to have PVC or acid in the material, and this would deteriorate the card. I've seen them just fall apart from this over the years. They caught on to that fairly quickly, late 80s, 90s definitely, and so that's usually not a problem anymore, but that's something that older cards could have encountered. So if you have it in something old like that, you want to get it out of there. Alright, so starting with the basics, you got your penny sleeves, and there's several different brands that make this. None of them are bad. None of them have PVC anymore, at least that I've encountered. So I wouldn't even worry too much about it. Whatever you buy is going to be fine. You want to make sure that if you're just storing in a top loader, that you use these. If you don't, you're going to scratch the surface, and the cards are just going to bang around and do worse than they would have just on their own. So you just take one of these, give it a little pinch, make a hole, slides right in. One smooth motion, and you got it. Then once you got that, you want to back that up with a top loader, and once again, these are basic. They have different sizes, which I'm going to go over in a minute, but for the most part, brand, people prefer different things. In my experience, it doesn't matter. As long as you're buying something new, it's gonna work for you. And all you do here, you got little openings. Just get that first corner in one of the openings, and then just let it slide right in. And once you get it in there, there's a couple different options. Once the card's in, I've seen people bang them. Not my preference, but doing it that way you don't have to touch the card, or you can just slowly kind of work it in with your thumb. That's what I prefer, because you can get it centered, and you don't, it has nice eye appeal, and you're not hurting the card because you're barely touching it. If anything, you're touching the sleeve, but personal choice. Okay. Next up, we've got sizes, which these top loaders do come in different sizes. You've got some crazy cards these days, and it tells you on the side what point it goes up to. So this one would hold up to thick cards up to 75 point. If it says regular, that's going to be most of your cards, unless it's some of the ones that I'm going to show you. Very quick there, if you're a collector with some old cards, obviously there's different sizes. It's a little T206 greenback Ty Cobb, not original, just for display. You can put this in a sleeve and a top loader, and it would do fine if this was original. Obviously you want to look into some different options. You just don't want to put it into something where it's going to bang around, but smaller's usually alright. Then in 1954, 1956, they went out of the big cards, and in 57 they had the smaller modern version. So they do sell holders for the pre-1956 and prior cards, which are a little denser, a little longer. So you would have to buy something separate if you're doing anything before 56, looking for top loaders to fit in. Billy Herman with the classic tape stains. Yeah. All right. So now we got that down. For most of your older cards, if you've got like a bunch of low-grade commons, mid-grade even, a regular box, storage box is fine. The tubes that they make, I'm trying to see if I have one around here. These guys. For commons, base, things like that, that's fine. But if you got some nicer older cards, or you're looking for that mid-tier sleeve, top loader, make sure you got your sizes right, and then you're good to go. As far as archiving, as far as selling, you're good there. All right, next up. So in, I don't know the exact year, but I'm trying to remember, late 90s, early 2000s, when Beckett and PSA, BGS, PSA started to get popular, people really started to focus on the surface of the card, which in my early days of collecting didn't really matter. If you couldn't see it, it wasn't there. So, mint was everything from like excellent to mint to gem mint, which, doesn't exist that much in older cards. So if you do have something, let me show you an example of a graded card, by the way. All right, so this is a graded card, and just a random one I picked. If you look at it, naked eye, this looks perfect, and it did get a mint, so that's not bad. They give it grades on centering, corners, edges, surface. That surface is what a lot of times people who are new to the collecting or are getting back into it, they're not aware of that. I can't count the times people will bring me old cards and say, look at this is mint, and I'm like, nah, it's probably near mint at best, which is a huge difference as far as value. So if you have something really nice, this is one option. BGS, PSA, they do grading services. You can look into that. It's not too much. And the card's in there. It's protected. You can't hurt this thing. It's UV protected. And more importantly, when you go to sell it, there's no question as to what the grade of the card is. So that's that. Say you don't want to get into all that. You got a couple different options. You got a really nice card or something you want to protect. Maybe you've got like a mid-grade 57 Mantle, or you got a $100 autograph, whatever. They sell these One Touch, which is, I'll take old Chip Jet here, and all you do, you put the card in there and push one side in, and it snaps shut. And these are surprisingly good. They have little recesses for the corners. Back in the old days, they didn't have this, and so you look at it 10 years later, and it's got corner damage where it didn't used to. These are pretty good. The only thing I would look out for is if you have something new and really shiny and has the clear coat, multiple clear coats on the top, the surface may not be appropriate for some of these cards. So just make sure if that's the case, you're aware of that. And they also make them in thicker versions with the screw, whatever you prefer, doesn't really matter. And say you got something really nice that you don't want to send off to any grading service, you're just going to own it forever, or you want to display it, something that looks cool, They have several different options. This is one of my favorites. I know it's a little vintage, but these are super thick acrylic. It's protected in there. It's UV protected, so you can put this on display as long as it's not in direct sunlight and not worry too much about, you know, it fading from the light and things like that. If you do go into the old school screw downs, make sure that you start with alternate screwing. Start on this side. That was weird. Start on this side, go cross corner, and then slowly work it in there. You don't want to tighten it too much. You just want it enough to where it's not going to move. And once again, this is not, in my opinion, ideal because you do have acrylic on the surface of the card, but I've never had a problem with it. I know some purists are cringing right now on that one, but there you go. All right. If you're submitting a card to a grading service, they have these, which are a little more rigid. You can get, I won't get into this too much since it's a basic tutorial, but if you do get into that, you still want to put it in a penny sleeve before you put it in one of these. Otherwise, you run the risk of scratching that surface, and that can be a huge detriment to your card grade. All right. If you get into the thicker cards, you get into it and you get you some jersey cards. You can see that they get bigger and bigger. BCW has a little scale. It shows you the points in the beginning. I showed you what a 75 point looked like. There's the scale. You can just put your card right, print it out, put your card right up to it or estimate, and that'll tell you what card thickness gauge you need. And it's pretty basic. I think most collectors, you know, don't need to worry a whole lot about this. Obviously, if you got a 380 point card, you know what you're doing, and you're going to find a holder to fit it. All right. I think that covers everything. If you have any questions, please feel free to let me know. And I think that's it.